Well, it wasn't going to be a perfect season. The Steelers weren't going to go 17-0, and if they're going to lose the game, you might as well do it in September and learn some lessons a little earlier on. Well, welcome everybody to the Southside Beat here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcasting Network and Steelers YouTube channel. Chris Halicke here, Matt Williamson alongside me. Greg McAfee not here today. He is traveling to North Carolina for Pitt football as they continue their quest for a pretty darn good season so far. But Matt, how you doing?
I'm good. This is my last responsibility of a long week, but it's a fun one.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely looking forward to getting a bit of a breather. Don't have to travel this weekend. Get to watch some, obviously, get to watch some college football tomorrow. Would be nice. Yeah, it'll be fun. Okay, diving straight into a quick little recap of what happened last week. Obviously, the Steelers suffered their first loss of the season, losing 27-24 to the Colts. Steelers fell behind 17-0 rather quickly. They clawed their way back. The offense scored touchdowns on 3 straight drives. Unfortunately, they made just far too many mistakes to overcome and wound up falling short. Matt, what were your overall impressions of the game? Was there anything that played out that you kind of saw maybe happening, or is there anything that really kind of took you by surprise?
Well, I think the major themes are just a horrendous start. I mean, particularly on both sides of the ball, but I don't like words like flat and rusty, and I mean, there are shortcuts to thinking. I think they just didn't play their best, and the Colts had a very good early game plan that might have taken them by surprise. And frankly, the Colts needed it more. Like sometimes we overlook the human element of it. I mean, if the Colts lose that game, it's hot seat time. It's, back against the wall, all those cliches. So the Colts came out hot, and I barely recognized the Steeler defense for a series or 3, and that was surprising to me. I didn't see that coming. And that coupled with too many self-inflicted wounds, along with maybe, and I'm not making excuses for the Steelers, but there were probably 8 plays. Flacco was at a sack or not by Cam. The Minka penalty late out of bounds, the late hit. Porter almost intercepting, the fumble that they could have easily recovered. And about none of those went the Steelers' way. Just kind of ball bouncing judgment call stuff didn't go their way. And sometimes that's just the way it goes. But my biggest takeaway is actually a positive one, that if I told you the offenses we've seen in Pittsburgh the last 5 years started out 17-0 that they're losing, they lost the turnover battle by 2 and handed them the possession twice on 4th downs, I don't care who they're playing. I'll be like, oh, they lost 40-0, right? I'm like,
yeah.
No, they came back, and they can overcome some things now.
Yeah, that was a very big positive takeaway. It was that you saw this offense engineered by Justin Fields be able to actually come back in a game. And that, to me, we don't necessarily have to get into the Devontae Adams talk because, Lord knows.
I think a second receiver would have been useful.
Oh, yeah. You get more firepower in a situation like that. You can actually now kind of realistically look at something and be like, okay, maybe the Steelers can actually give themselves a puncher's chance in just about any game, even if they were going up against the Patrick Mahomeses and Josh Allen's. If they have the firepower, Justin Fields showed the ability to be able to claw back in a game. The biggest
and kind of put the team on his shoulders, not just be a spoke in the wheel,
Yeah, absolutely. It did come with a couple of kind of like, what the heck are you doing type plays, but it also came with like, holy crap, like there are only so many quarterbacks in the league who can make that kind of a play. And that's kind of what you expect. Justin Fields is not Jared Goff, right? He's not the type of guy where if you give him the right protection, he can just distribute the ball at will. Justin Fields, while way more mobile than Ben Roethlisberger ever was, is probably going to drive fans a little more mad the same way Ben did whenever he was a young quarterback. At times, he could drive you crazy with what he tried to do. But then other times, you'd be like, that's why he's the guy. Because he would make a certain play that few other guys in the league could possibly make, and you always take that guy if he's a guy who can help you. It gives you a legitimate fighting chance to win every single week just because of what he can do. My biggest takeaway from that is I hope the Steelers don't see Shane Steichen again this season because it really does seem like he has Mike Tomlin's number.
Yeah.
3 straight
and
years.
Sometimes those things are true.
Yes.
Just coordinators understand the other play caller, and pitchers have hitters numbered. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's 3 straight years now that they have that the Steelers have faced Shane Steichen. And, for the 2022, he was offensive coordinator of the Eagles. They put up a lot of points and a lot of yards. They faced the Colts last year when he became head coach over there. They put up a lot of points and a lot of yards. This year, they put up a lot of points and a lot of yards. He just seems to know how to attack the way the Steelers run cover 3. And it looked like it was the same window over and over and over and over again that he was just exploiting. And so,
especially the Flacco change. They didn't prep for anything, so they went very basic, vanilla stuff against a veteran.
Yep.
Real quick Flacco note I just want to throw out there too is I really believe this to be true with Joe, who I always like to throw this in there. I helped recruit the Pit way back when. He used to be one of the remaining guys that I toured around Oakland and whatnot and helped him commit. But if you remember, he came off the couch last year to play for the Browns. And I have never seen Joe that aggressive in his whole career because he had nothing to lose. When he was at the Browns, he's slinging it all over the field, super aggressive, taking chances with his arm, and it caught up to him in the playoffs, but it took a while to catch up to him. I thought I saw the same guy on Sunday because is that dude really open? I don't care. I'm going to sling it in there, and if it doesn't go well, I'll just go back to the couch with my millions of dollars. I got nothing to lose. I am playing with house money. And he was sharp.
Yeah, no, he was definitely a guy that was going to be able to attack, or was at least willing to attack the Steelers at just about every portion of the field. I don't think Anthony Richardson was that guy. Shoot, man, that first throw of the game, not taking anything away. It was pretty much in the only spot where his receiver could have possibly caught it. But that's still a play that Joey Porter Jr. has to make. I mean, he throws it into his zone. When you're throwing against zone defense, you're trying to throw into windows, not into zones. And that was a throw going straight into a zone that needed to be at least at the bare minimum a PBU, if not intercepted. So
that was one of those 8 to 10 plays that, I mean, if it gets tipped, does that game go the same way? I bet it doesn't. Just some way the ball bounces,
Yeah. But the good news is if you're trying to take a positive spin out of it, it happens early enough in the week. Or not in the week, early enough in the season, and you can learn your lessons in September. You'd rather be learning your lessons in September than in December or January. So, understand that tape's out there. There are going to be teams that try to exploit it, fix things up, make sure your details are corrected, and fix things. And there's an opportunity this week for this team to get it going. And so we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we will dive straight into this matchup between the Steelers and the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. And so do not go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
Well, welcome back to the Southside Beat here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcasting Network. And Cowboys, they are 2-2. The Steelers are 3-1. Obviously, a very, very marquee matchup here. I mean, it really almost doesn't matter what either team is doing. Every time these two teams face off, it seems to be pretty exciting. But this is a pretty big game for both teams because while it's still early in the season, if the Cowboys fall to 2-3 with the way the Commanders are playing, knowing what the Eagles are capable of, the Giants don't look like they're an absolute, at least complete total mess. That could really put them behind the 8 ball when it comes to trying to actually make the playoffs. And then obviously the Steelers, they're trying to stay ahead of the Baltimore Ravens. So What do you like in this matchup for the Steelers? Obviously, the Cowboys are dealing with a slew of injuries right now, but what do you like for this matchup for the Steelers, and what maybe kind of scares you a little bit?
So 1 week ago, we had the same conversation, and I think we all came to the conclusion that it would surprise us if the Steelers lost. And there was a lot of things on Friday on this show, the Southside Beat, that sure looked like it was going the Steelers' way, and they lost. And never underestimate a desperate opponent or a professional football team or professional football player. But man, I think this sets up so well for the Steelers. I mean, it's interesting to me, the history of these teams, and I'm older than you, and I remember, the Super Bowls and all that kind of stuff, and the unbelievable success they've had since the merger, both these teams and all that stuff, and primetime success, etc. But man, Dallas is walking into a difficult situation without Parsons, without Lawrence. They really have to sell out to stop the run. They are not equipped to stop the run. I mean, in week 2 and 3, they gave up 464 yards rushing. And then they just sold out against the Giants and kind of bend but not break, and the Giants couldn't score. And I assume they'll do the same to the Steelers, but I think the Steelers' offense is much more equipped to beat you in other ways than the Giants. And then they can't run the ball either, and the run games are both going to favor the Steelers so heavily. And it's a primetime game after they kind of got embarrassed. Now they're that team that, Watt, do you think Watt's going to get a sack in this one? Yeah. So it's a losable game. Dak Prescott's a really good player. CeeDee Lamb could end up with 180 yards, and Ferguson's good, and their kicker is unbelievable, and they're good on special teams, and the Steelers could certainly shoot themselves in the foot as well. But I think this is a really favorable matchup for the Steelers.
I do agree. And I the one thing I do want to say is I think there's a kind of a misconception out there about Dak Prescott.
Mm-hmm.
I think some people just think that he's a very overrated quarterback, and he's just not. He's actually a very, very good quarterback. I would even go as far as to say that if Dak Prescott magically were to be placed as the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, that this would be a Super Bowl contender based off the rest of the roster.
Or if he would have happened to hit free agency this offseason, or
but I mean, the Cowboys did lock him up, so that just, it was kind of the pipe dream there, and for anybody who wants an actual franchise quarterback who's already established. But he is that type of a guy, and he's got a very, very dangerous weapon in CeeDee Lamb. So I would expect there to be some explosive plays and some chunks to be taken out of at times by those two. But as you mentioned, the Cowboys are so beaten up on the defensive side of the ball. And not to mention, I mean, obviously you mentioned Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, those two guys being out. That's the same as if the Steelers defense were missing TJ Watt and Cam Hayward.
Yeah,
that's the exact equivalent. And then also on top of the fact that Trayvon Diggs is questionable. The rookie linebacker, Leafau, however you say his name, he's now questionable. He got injured in practice on Friday. So they are absolutely just gutted by injuries on that side of the ball. And then, they have not defended the run well whatsoever. Now, the Steelers may be 10th in the NFL in rushing, but they are not efficient running the ball whatsoever.
No.
Their yards per carry is terrible. Their rush EPA is near the bottom of the league. Their rushing success rate is near the bottom of the league. It's not great. If there's ever a week that that's why the title of the episode is "If the Steelers can't run the ball this week." ... Like, if there's a game that the Steelers can try to get the running game going, it has to be this week against a defense that just hasn't been able to stop the run, and now they're just missing their absolute best players on that side of the ball. They have to be able to. I'm not talking about getting 150 yards and getting there by running the ball 50 times. I'm talking about being able to put up 140, 150 yards while averaging 4.5 to 5 yards a carry. You have to be efficient on the ground.
100% agree. And I think the best way to go about that, which is plays the Steelers' strengths, is put a lot of big people on the field, make them stay in their base, and they want to live in nickel if they can. They're built for speed and that type of thing. and now they're on their fourth string edge player, because Sam Williams was kind of their Herbig. I mean, he got hurt way back in camp. People aren't even talking about that, but he was a really promising player. He was a second-round pick a year ago. So their defensive front, I would make them play a lot of physical snaps as possible, and maybe it is only 3 yards a carry for the first quarter. Then it's 3.5, and then it's 5 by the end of the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this has to be a game in which the Steelers have to come out firing on all cylinders, but it would behoove them to use a Mike Tomlinism that he likes, he said a couple times. It would definitely be of their benefit to get off to a good start, because they haven't done it yet.
No.
And the Cowboys are a team that twice in 4 games have been forced to do so. They fell behind quickly to the Saints and were forced to be one-dimensional. The same thing happened against the Ravens. Now, they nearly came back against the Ravens. They tried to pull off what the Steelers tried to pull off against the Colts. They were down by 22 in the fourth quarter and ended up losing by only 3. So and that just goes to show that the Cowboys absolutely have the firepower and the quarterback in order to play that type of a game.
Definitely.
But this has to be, I would say, I would feel much, much better about this offense going forward if you're going up against an opponent that is weakened and you just come out and you put up at least 10 points on the first 2 drives. Like, I really feel like that's not asking too much. Like, go down there, get a touchdown right away, or at least get a field goal right away, build off of it, go get a touchdown the next time. You got to do something. This offense really needs to get going. I thought they did some things really well in the passing game, especially when they fell behind. So, and I think with what Justin Fields showed, I think that maybe they can't open things up, early, especially on first down, because they're not running the ball well on first down right now.
Let me stop you real quick on that, because they're running the ball horribly on first down. Yeah. You're 100% right. And Dale and I were talking about this on the drive, and he went back and charted all the first down play calls in the Colt game, and it was almost 2-to-1 pass to run, which I thought was really encouraging. And I didn't put 2 and 2 together on that these teams scout themselves. They have to realize run and then run on second and long is not the formula here. And frankly, they must trust Fields much more now than they did going into Atlanta or Denver, right.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that with what Justin has shown, not just the ability to make completions from inside the pocket, but also his ability to improvise, to get outside the pocket and to make big plays that way, whether it's with his arm or with his legs. I think that does give them more freedom. They don't have to necessarily be an offense that's, okay, we're going to run it on first down, we're going to run it on second down, and then if we get to 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, then we can open things up and we can try a number of different things. I do think that this offense wants to always have 3rd down be manageable. And one of the best ways you can do that is to have an effective running game, because it's a lot easier to get 3 yards running than it is to get 3 yards passing whenever you're dealing with potential pass rushers or blitzes or things like that, because I would say easier. I'd say safer. It's safer to get 3 yards on the ground than it is to throw it. I'm sorry to
interrupt, but along those lines too, I think you're 100% right. But I also think recent history shows around the league that the best offenses create first downs with 2 downs, not 3 downs.
Yes.
If you look at the end of the year, the best teams in the league on 3rd down are 50%. Well, that's not a great ratio. Something I look at all the time is when we talk about 3rd down conversions, or I look at the box score as soon as the game's over. Yeah, I'm interested in the percentage that was converted, but I'm also probably more concerned with the denominator. They snapped the ball 22 times in this game. Or I'm just making that up. Wow, that's too many. But going into the Colts game, they had way too many offensive snaps on 3rd down.
Yeah.
It's a recipe for disaster.
No, I definitely agree with that. So this might just be a team philosophy, like a Mike Tomlin thing, because this seemed to be the way that the offense operated when Matt Canada was offensive coordinator. They were fine with getting to 3rd down just about every time they got a new set of downs, but they just wanted 3rd down to be 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, very, very much more manageable third down situations than 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10. So
that does eat clock, and that has some value, but
yeah, but then you're
man.
Right. And that's, you're flirting with the percentages there. And what if it just so happens that the defense has your number on 3rd down that week, for example,
or you get a holding penalty or a drop pass, or one bad thing derails it all.
Yeah. So I do want to see the other thing that kind of concerns me, and then we can get into the actual game prediction here. But one thing that does concern me a bit is Arthur Smith has been known for a while now, going back to his days in Tennessee and what he did in Atlanta, of being able to stretch the field through play action. And they just aren't doing that right now. The average depth per target on play action right now is 1.3 yards. That's the lowest in the league, and it's the lowest in the league by 2 whole yards to the next team that's above them. They are checking down on play action way more than any other team in the league, 44% of the time. It's like the next highest team was the Broncos, and it was like 20-something%. Like it's not even close.
Exactly opposite of what you're trying to accomplish.
Exactly. Play action. You're trying to at least, or I understand like the 3 level concepts that you call out of play action. Like I get, you have a flat, you have an intermediate, and you have a deep. The deep is typically meant to be a clear, and you're trying to hit the intermediate guy. Like I get it, but they've got
Arthur Smith with the Titans, AJ Brown, over the middle on in cutter,
That's something that, again, it doesn't necessarily have to be fixed this game, but that's something that I would feel at some point is going to regress more in the Steelers' favor than against from it, because I can't see it getting any worse. And so that, I think, is another way for this offense to possibly open things up, is if they can possibly start hitting on some of these play action passes down the field, because it just hasn't happened yet.
It's a great point. I didn't know those. I know a lot of numbers, but I didn't know those numbers on play action. I knew it was bad. I didn't know it was like a distant last in terms of what they produce in play action. It adds up, though.
Yeah, it's now granted, to be fair, Justin Fields has turned the ball over twice in 4 games. He's not forcing the ball down the field. He's throwing the ball down the field.
Pick it. What are they coaching him to do? We never going to get those answers,
Right. And so I get it, but it's not because Justin's not throwing the ball down the field. He's just not throwing the ball down the field on play action. And so maybe it's just the coverages that they're seeing. He's just totally fine with checking it down. He even told me that Thursday. He told me that Thursday. He's like, yeah, we're fine with taking the check down if that's what the defense is going to give us, because I trust Najee to catch the ball in space and then go get some yards. So
we saw a little of that,
Yeah, that's been the case too. So I just think that that's something to watch going forward, and it could be in this game too, because again, you're facing a defense that's missing Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons does more than just rush the passer. He's a very, very good defensive player. So maybe you can try to, especially if they're also going to miss Trayvon Diggs, if he's out, shoot, man, like this is a defense that can be exploited, in my opinion. So
yeah, it's a bottom tier defense with those 3 out.
All righty. So Matt, what are you feeling for this game? What do you think? Well, obviously like a final score prediction, but how do the Steelers win this game? Is it just sheer will to run the football? How do you see this playing out?
So a big key I want to pay attention to is I think you have to think as those around you, your opponent thinks in some ways. And if I'm Dallas, especially without my dudes and without my pass rushers, I might have put 12 in the box. You know what I mean? And just say, if we lose that way, we lose that way. But I can't get gashed 6 yards a carry and play it light. And I think that's kind of what they did against the Giants. Like, we're getting gashed so much in back-to-back games. Anything but that will work. And that puts the onus on Pickens to beat one-on-one coverage and Freiermuth and Fields and to be a little more precise. And so maybe there is some growing pains with that. And I could absolutely see the first quarter going, Matt, you told me this defense is terrible. They don't have anybody, and the Steelers can't move the ball, and they're not running for any yards. But see who's near the line of scrimmage is a big thing to me. But when it's said and done, I do think the Dallas defense, we haven't even touched on time of possession. That favors the Steelers greatly. Yeah. And I really think the depth of their big guys is a problem. the energy in that building. I expect the second half to really belong to the Steeler offense. But I don't want to sell Dak short at all. I mean, I think he's capable of – he's very good above the neck. I mean, he is a really, really good quarterback. I have the Steelers win in 2016. Not sure it'll be as close as that feeling in the end. I think they'll control it. But I also don't expect all of a sudden they're going to start dropping 30 on people yet either.
Right. Yeah, I'm not, even though the Steelers scored 24 last week, and this is probably a defense that they maybe should score against more often than they did against Indianapolis. I'm going 23-20 Steelers. I do think the 20 points against the Steelers defense is going to want to answer. And so 20 points wouldn't necessarily be the best answer, but that's just how much respect I have for Dak and his ability to take chunks out of defenses. CeeDee Lamb is one of the most dangerous receivers in the league.
No doubt.
I do feel like the Cowboys are going to have a couple of drives in which they really hurt this defense, whether it be for touchdowns or whatever it is. But yeah, I do think as the game wears on, the Steelers, it could be more, kind of a repeat of the Chargers game. Hopefully they get off to a better start than they did against the Chargers, but kind of a repeat in terms of they're just going to wear them down. Then come second half, that defense is going to be so beat up and so tired that they just can't stop them. Yeah. So I do think 23-20 is my final score prediction. Before we close out, do you have a favorite Steelers Cowboys memory? It's such a storied rivalry. We have to, I think, bring up something about the Steelers Cowboys rivalry. I mean, it's the only two teams that have met in the Super Bowl 3 times. So,
yes. One last note for the game that I would feel a lot more comfortable with, though, is a healthy Warren or Patterson.
Yeah,
that would make me sleep a little. That's not going to happen, but that would make me sleep a little bit better at night. I missed last year's version of Jaylen Warren a great deal.
Yeah,
but anyway. So I'm a lot older than you. I was born in 1973. And, of course, my aunts, uncles, parents, black and gold to no end. The Steelers are – when I'm starting to grow up and understand, the Steelers are winning Super Bowls like crazy. And, frankly, the first game I remember as a kid and kind of having a strong understanding of what's going on and caring who wins and cheering at the right time was the Steelers' Super Bowl win over the Rams. So I don't remember the first 2 Dallas Super Bowls all that well. But my parents and family taught me right, and I ended up having a career in this silly business. And they taught me back then that you hate the Raiders most, and then you hate the Cowboys. Then we'll worry about the Browns and the Oilers. I mean, people like the Oilers. Bengals, the division, they're not the powerhouses. They can't be the team of the 70s like the Steelers. There's Hall of Famers everywhere in Oakland and Dallas and Pittsburgh at that time. And the Steelers ended up being triumphant over those. So that is a big thing that's always Steelers Cowboys to me. And the other one is when they lost the Super Bowl, I was not yet doing this for a living. I was a big time fan. And I really thought they were coming back. And if that goes one more quarter, they had a chance to be Super Bowl champions. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I was alive for that game. I was a kid. I was a kid, but I do remember that game very, very well. And I wouldn't necessarily put that as a great memory because, growing up with 2 parents who were Steelers fans, I grew up in a Steelers household. And so obviously that game was a pretty dark night for a lot for everybody in the house that night. So, but my favorite memory is actually I'm going to go to just a regular season matchup, but it's the memories that I have. I worked in a job at that point in 2008 when the 2 teams faced each other. And I worked with a lot of Cowboys fans, and we wanted to do a big watch party for Steelers Cowboys. And so they all came to my house and watched the game. And then obviously the Steelers are down by 10 in the fourth quarter. And then they end up coming back and winning, mainly on the Deshae Townsend pick 6 near the end that kind of, seals it there. And then, just watching all of the Cowboys fans just kind of like have to be just very sad. That made you happy. Yeah. It was a fun night, because I always talked a lot of mess about the Cowboys don't win Super Bowls anymore, and they haven't even been to an NFC championship since that year that they beat the Steelers. So it was a fun memory for me, but this has definitely been a year or a rivalry that's had memory after memory. Big Ben's kind of coming, I want to say coming out party, but definitely one of his more memorable games from his rookie year in 2004 was at Old Texas Stadium. That comeback in 2008, the fake spike, Big Ben to Antonio Brown in 2016. I know the Cowboys ended up winning that game, but there have been some pretty cool memories. And obviously you go back to the 70s, Jack Lambert slamming down Cliff Harris for taunting Roy Gerella. You go through those memories. So I think it's pretty cool.
And then we get the Raiders next week, which is also memory lane. Yeah, how about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Chris,
All right,
last
Matt.
thing I got is I urge everyone to go to Steelers.com and check out Dale's column, because he kind of does a history of this what these teams have been, because I don't have it in front of me. But since the merger, the Steelers have the most wins in the league. Cowboys are 2. I think Dallas has the most division titles. Steelers are 2. All these massive categories, it's just like these two organizations are kind of the cream of the crop since the merger,
Yeah, absolutely. They've definitely been, and I think that's why, anytime Steelers Cowboys meet, whether it's regular season, Super Bowl, doesn't matter. It's going to get a lot of attention, as it should.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for joining today, for listening in. We really appreciate it. Enjoy the game this weekend on Sunday. Well, obviously Sunday night. Hopefully your late night into Monday morning is a happy one, if the Steelers are able to get a win. So either way, enjoy, have a great weekend. We will talk to you guys later and catch you on the Flippity Flip.